Hey guys, welcome back to Just Sleep Stories. Tonight, you are not checking your phone, not setting an alarm, not worrying about emails. Instead, you are about to wake up somewhere far less comfortable, somewhere louder, dirtier, and just a little bit more dramatic than your average Monday morning. You're about to experience the Roman Empire, all of it. A world of marble and mud, of grand triumphs and very questionable hygiene. A place where roads stretch endlessly across continents. But your bed is probably made of straw, and your neighbour might own a goat that absolutely refuses to be quiet. It sounds impressive, and it is, but also, it smells. Imagine your modern life. Clean water, soft mattresses, privacy. Now gently remove all of that. Replace it with shared spaces, unpredictable food, and a daily routine that includes both philosophy and the constant risk of stepping in something unfortunate. You will deal with work, sleep, food, and hygiene, but in ways that feel oddly familiar, just significantly worse. So before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it for you? If this topic was suggested by you, thank you. Truly. You've made things slightly more uncomfortable for everyone. Now, dim the lights, turn on a fan if you have one, get comfortable, or at least more comfortable than what's coming, and just think for a moment. Could you survive without modern comforts? What would you eat? If you had no fridge? Would you panic? If everything smelled faintly of smoke and sweat? Would you last a day? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the Roman Empire. You wake slowly, not to an alarm, but to the distant hum of a city already alive. Voices echo through narrow streets. Carts rattle over stone, and somewhere nearby, a dog is barking with impressive dedication. The air is cool, but not fresh. It carries the scent of smoke, damp stone, and something vaguely organic that you decide not to investigate. Your bed is simple. A rough surface, a thin layer of fabric, maybe some straw if you're fortunate. It is not uncomfortable enough to complain about, but not comfortable enough to miss. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your body, and realize this is not a restful kind of life. This is a functional one, which, in this century, counts as a win. And slowly you become aware of the rhythm around you. Rome does not wake all at once. It unfolds. A door creaks open somewhere above you. Footsteps echo from a nearby corridor. Someone clears their throat with great seriousness, as if preparing for an important speech that will never happen. The city breathes in layers, and you are now part of it. You sit up and immediately notice the temperature. It is neither warm nor cold, just enough to remind you that comfort is not guaranteed. Your shoulders feel slightly tense, your back a little stiff. Not painful, just noticeable. Like your body is gently reminding you that it slept on something that was not designed with luxury in mind. You rub your eyes and blink into the dim light. There is no soft glow from a bedside lamp, no comforting hum of electricity, just natural light, slowly finding its way into your space. It arrives carefully, slipping through small openings, touching surfaces unevenly, revealing textures instead of hiding them. Stone, wood, fabric, everything looks real, solid, slightly worn. And then there is the sound of movement outside. A cart rolls past, its wheels grinding against stone with a low, steady rumble. You can almost feel it through the floor. Voices follow, not loud, just constant. Conversations blending into each other until they become something like background music. There is no silence here, only quieter moments. You take a breath. The air feels heavier than you're used to. It lingers. It carries the memory of yesterday. Smoke from cooking fires, the faint trace of animals, the slow accumulation of daily life. It is not overwhelming, but it is present, very present. You swing your legs over the side of your bed, placing your feet onto the ground. The surface is cool, slightly uneven. You adjust instinctively, finding balance without thinking about it. And for a moment you just sit there, not rushing, not planning, just existing. Because there is no immediate urgency, no clock counting down, no notifications demanding your attention. The day will happen whether you hurry or not. But here's the thing, you are already behind. Not in a stressful way, just in a quiet, inevitable way. The city has been awake longer than you. It always is. And it will continue long after you fall asleep again. You stand slowly, stretching once more, listening to the sounds grow slightly louder as the morning deepens. And as you do, a simple realization settles in. This is your life now. No shortcuts, no conveniences, no hidden systems working behind the scenes to make things easier. Just you and the day ahead, which for now is still manageable. But give it time. Let's talk about last night, or what passed for it. You did sleep technically, but it was light, interrupted, and shared. Privacy is not part of the Roman experience unless you are extremely wealthy, and even then it is more of a suggestion. The sounds never stop. Footsteps, voices, distant laughter, the occasional argument. Your sleeping space feels temporary, as if you are always slightly in the way. The fabric beneath you is coarse, the air heavy, and the temperature unpredictable. Too warm, then suddenly cold. It is like camping, but forever. And as you lie there, listening to the city breathe around you, you realize sleep here is less about rest, and more about endurance. And as you think back on the night, you realize something else. You never fully let go. Even in your deepest moment of rest, part of you remained aware. Not anxious, not afraid, just alert. Like your body understood that this environment required a certain level of attention at all times. You remember shifting slightly, adjusting your position on the rough surface beneath you. The texture of the fabric was constant, not soft, not unpleasant, just there. A steady reminder that comfort is not the goal. The air changed throughout the night. At first it was warm, not enough to be uncomfortable, but enough to make you aware of it. Then gradually it cooled, a faint draft finding its way through the space, brushing against your skin just enough to wake you slightly before you settled again. There are no blankets carefully chosen for temperature control, no perfect balance, just adaptation. You pull something closer, adjust your position, continue, and then there are the sounds. Always the sounds. A voice somewhere nearby, speaking softly but persistently. The rhythm of footsteps above or beside you. The occasional burst of laughter that fades as quickly as it appears, and at one point, a brief argument that rises just enough to be noticed before dissolving back into quiet conversation. None of it is directed at you, but none of it disappears. You begin to understand that silence is not a natural part of this world. It is something rare, temporary, almost accidental. Instead, there are a constant layer of life happening around you, a soft, continuous reminder that you're not alone, which is comforting, and also slightly exhausting. You turn, adjusting again, finding a position that works for a while. Your body learns quickly. It has to. It stops expecting perfection and starts accepting adequacy. And that is enough. Time passes in a way that feels slower, but also less defined. There is no glowing clock to check, no clear sense of how long you've been lying there, just the gradual shift of light and sound. At some point you drift deeper. Not completely, but enough. And then, just as slowly you return. The city never stopped. It simply continued without you, and now you are back in it. You sit up again, aware that this cycle will repeat tonight, and the night after that, and the one after that. And strangely, you begin to accept it, because this is not a place designed for perfect rest. It is a place designed for continuing, and you are doing exactly that, which, under the circumstances, is surprisingly impressive. Now take a look around. Your home is not large, it is not particularly clean, and it is definitely not quiet. The walls are rough, the floors uneven, and everything feels slightly worn, as if it has been used by many people before you, because it has. Light enters cautiously, filtered through small openings, never quite bright enough. The air moves slowly, carrying the layered scent of daily life. Cooking, dust, dampness. It is not unbearable, but it lingers. Furniture is minimal, practical, and just sturdy enough to trust. You quickly understand that this is not a place for comfort. It is a place for existing, and somehow everyone seems completely used to it, which is mildly concerning. And as your eyes adjust, more details begin to emerge. The walls are not smooth, they carry marks, subtle variations in texture that tell a quiet story of time passing. Small cracks, uneven surfaces, places where something once hung or rested. Nothing here is new. Everything has been lived with. You move a few steps forward, and the floor responds beneath you, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that it is not perfectly even. You adjust your footing without thinking, your body learning the space faster than your mind. There is a rhythm to it, a quiet negotiation between you and your surroundings. You reach out, touching a nearby surface. The material is firm, slightly cool. It feels solid, dependable, not refined, but reliable. And that seems to be the theme. Nothing here is designed to impress, only to function. A small table stands nearby, its surface worn smooth in some places, rough in others. It has clearly been used for many different purposes. Eating, working, resting objects that mattered at the time and were then forgotten. You imagine the countless small moments that have happened here. None of them remarkable, all of them necessary. The light continues to shift slowly, revealing more of the room. It never fully brightens, it simply becomes less dim. There are no large windows inviting the outside in, just openings, practical, modest, sufficient. The air carries a mixture of scents, not unpleasant, just layered. Warmth from previous meals, the faint dryness of dust, a hint of moisture that never fully disappears. It is the smell of a place that is constantly in use, rarely empty, and never completely refreshed. You take another breath, and you adjust, because that is what this space requires. You notice how close everything feels, not cramped exactly, just compact, efficient. There is no wasted space, no empty corners waiting to be filled. Every part of this room has a purpose, and if it does not, it soon will. You begin to understand that this is not a temporary arrangement. This is not a place you pass through. This is where life happens, day after day, in small, quiet ways. And slowly you stop comparing it to anything else, because there is nothing else. This is simply where you are. And for now, it works, which in Rome is often the highest standard available. Now you reach for your clothes. Simple, functional, not particularly soft. Fabric drapes rather than fits, and everything feels slightly heavier than expected. There are no closets, no endless choices, just a few garments that do their job and little else. The texture is rough against your skin, especially in the morning chill. You adjust it, hoping it will become more comfortable with time. It might, or you might simply stop noticing. There is no mirror to carefully inspect yourself. No need, really. Everyone looks more or less the same, and slowly you realize. Fashion here is less about expression, and more about not being cold. You lift the fabric, feeling its weight in your hands. It is not light, not delicate. It has presence. The material folds in a way that feels deliberate, even if it was not designed with elegance in mind. You wrap it around yourself, adjusting it instinctively, learning through small movements rather than instructions. There is no perfect fit, only a workable one. You smooth it down, noticing how it settles differently depending on how you move. It responds to your body, but not precisely, more like a loose agreement than a tailored solution, and that is enough. You pull it into place, securing it as best you can. The fabric rests against your skin, slightly rough, slightly cool. It does not disappear into the background like modern clothing. You're always aware of it. Every step, every movement, every shift in posture reminds you that you are wearing something substantial. There are no layers designed for comfort, only layers designed for practicality. You adjust again, finding a position that feels balanced, not perfect, but stable. And then you pause, because there is no mirror, no reflective surface to check your appearance, no quick glance to confirm that everything is in place. You rely entirely on feel, on instinct, on the assumption that if it feels right, it probably looks acceptable. And as you look around, you notice that everyone else seems to operate the same way. There is a quiet uniformity to it, not identical, but similar enough that no one stands out. Clothing here is not a statement. It is a necessity, a solution to temperature, movement, and modesty. Nothing more. You take a step, testing how it moves with you. It shifts slightly, adjusting to your motion. You make a small correction, tightening one part, loosening another, and slowly you find your rhythm. It becomes easier, more natural, less noticeable. And as you move toward the next part of your day, you realize something simple. You're not dressed to impress. You're dressed to exist. And here, that is perfectly acceptable. Let's talk about breakfast. You are hungry, which is promising, but expectations should remain modest. The food is simple. Bread, perhaps. Something dense and filling. Maybe a bit of cheese if you're lucky. The texture is firm, slightly dry, and requires effort to chew. There is no coffee, no quick sugar boost, just slow energy. You eat quietly, focusing on the act itself. Around you, others do the same. It is not a social event. It is preparation. And as you finish, you realize this meal is not meant to be enjoyed. It is meant to keep you going, which, for now, is enough. You hold the bread in your hands for a moment. It is heavier than it looks. The surface is firm, slightly uneven, with a texture that suggests effort went into making it. And even more effort will be required to eat it. You take a bite. It does not yield easily. You chew slowly, feeling the density of it, the way it fills your mouth without offering much in return. There is no immediate burst of flavor. No sweetness, no richness, just substance. And as you continue, you begin to appreciate it, not for its taste, but for its purpose. This is food designed to last, to sustain, to provide just enough energy to carry you through the hours ahead. Nothing more. You take another bite, adjusting your pace. There is no reason to rush. The meal is simple, but it demands attention. You cannot eat it absent-mindedly. It requires participation. Around you, others are doing the same. Quietly, there is no conversation, no shared commentary about flavors or preferences, just the soft sound of chewing, the occasional shift in position, the steady rhythm of people preparing for the day. It is a collective moment, without interaction. You reach for something else, perhaps a small portion of cheese. It offers a slight contrast, softer, richer, but still simple. You eat it carefully, aware that this is not an unlimited resource. Every piece matters. There is no abundance here, only allocation. You swallow, taking a slow breath afterward. The food settles heavily but comfortably. It does not energize you immediately. It builds slowly, steady, reliable. You look down at what remains, not much, and that feels appropriate. Because this meal was never meant to satisfy completely. It was meant to prepare you. And as you finish, brushing your hands lightly, you notice something subtle. You're no longer thinking about taste, or variety, or preference. You're thinking about function, and that shift feels important. Because here, food is not about enjoyment, it is about continuation, and you are now ready to continue, which for now is exactly what you need. Let's talk about water. A simple thing usually, but here it requires effort. You do not turn a tap. You step outside carrying something to hold it and begin the quiet journey toward it. The sound of moving water reaches you before the sight does, soft and steady, almost comforting. The air feels cooler nearby, slightly fresher, though still touched by the city. You wait your turn. Others stand patiently, holding their own containers, shifting their weight, saying very little. When it's finally your turn, you lean in carefully, filling what you can without wasting a single drop. It is cool in your hands, real, important. You carry it back slowly, aware that this small task has already required time and attention, and suddenly, water is no longer something you use, it is something you manage, and as you walk you feel the weight of it. Not overwhelming, but noticeable. Every step becomes deliberate. You adjust your grip, careful not to spill even a little. The container presses slightly into your hand, reminding you that this is not unlimited. This is what you have, until you come back again. You pass others doing the same. Small movements, quiet understanding. No one rushes. There is no need. The process takes as long as it takes. And then there is the sound. Water moving, gently but consistently. It creates a kind of calm, even in the middle of the city. A soft contrast to the rough textures of stone and wood, to the constant movement of people and carts. You pause for a moment longer than necessary, not because you need to, but because it feels peaceful. You take a small sip. It is cool, slightly earthy, not perfectly clean by your modern standards, but refreshing in a way that feels immediate and real. You swallow slowly, letting the sensation settle, and for a moment everything feels simpler. But here's the thing. You cannot stay. You turn back, retracing your steps, feeling the water shift gently with each movement. You hold it steady, adjusting instinctively, learning how to move with it rather than against it. The ground beneath you is uneven. The air is warmer away from the source. The sounds grow louder again. The city returns. And when you reach your space, you set the container down carefully, almost ceremoniously. It feels like placing something valuable, because it is. You look at it for a moment, a simple thing, but earned. And slowly you begin to understand that here, even the smallest tasks carry weight, quite literally. Now, unfortunately, hygiene. You approach this carefully. The concept exists, but the execution is flexible. Washing is not constant. It is occasional, deliberate, and sometimes communal. The water is not always warm. The process is not always pleasant. And the result is acceptable. You do your best, you really do. But the environment has its own standards, and slowly you begin to understand that cleanliness here is not about perfection. It is about managing expectations. You begin with hesitation. There is no private, perfectly designed space waiting for you. No neatly arranged products promising improvement. Just a place, shared, functional, used often and cleaned. Occasionally, you approach it with a kind of quiet acceptance. The water, when you find it, is cool, not refreshing in the way you might hope, more awakening. It touches your skin with a firmness that demands attention. You wash slowly, not because you want to linger, but because the process requires it. Every movement feels deliberate. You adjust to the temperature, to the limited space, to the presence of others nearby who are doing the same. No one comments, no one reacts. This is normal. And that realization is both comforting and slightly concerning. You use your hands, feeling the texture of your skin, the way it responds to the water. There is no abundance here, no excess, just enough to do what needs to be done. You focus on the essentials, and that becomes your standard. The air around you carries a mixture of scents, not unpleasant, but layered. The result of many people moving through the same space, each leaving a small trace behind. You finish, stepping back slightly, allowing the next person to move forward. There is no clear end to the process, just a quiet understanding that you are done. You dry off as best you can. The fabric you use is not soft, not particularly absorbent. It does the job, eventually. And as you step away, you take a breath. You feel cleaner. Not perfectly, but enough. And that is the key. Because here, cleanliness is not about achieving a standard. It is about maintaining a balance. And as you return to your day, you realize that your expectations have already shifted. Lowered slightly, adjusted, and surprisingly, you are okay with that. Which in this situation is quite an achievement. It's time to address something unavoidable. The bathroom. It is shared. It is public. And it is not quiet. The space is functional, but not private, and certainly not scented in any comforting way. You approach it with a kind of cautious acceptance. Inside you find a row of simple seating arrangements, each occupied or waiting to be. People sit beside each other casually, as if this is the most normal thing in the world. And to them, it is. You take your place, trying not to overthink it. Conversation happens, or doesn't. Either way, the experience is communal. And as you finish and step away, you realize something important. Privacy, in this world, is optional. Comfort is negotiable, and dignity is flexible. You settle in, doing your best to remain calm. There is no separation, no walls, no comforting sense of distance, just proximity, shared space in its most literal form. You focus on something neutral, the texture of the stone beneath you, the faint movement of air, the distant sounds of the city continuing as if nothing unusual is happening, because for everyone else, nothing is. This is routine. You hear quiet voices nearby, not directed at you, just part of the environment. Conversations that continue regardless of context. It is strangely casual, and that is perhaps the most surprising part. No one seems uncomfortable. No one is rushing to leave. This is simply another part of the day. You finish as efficiently as possible, standing carefully, stepping away without drawing attention. There is a system here. Simple, practical, effective. You follow it without question, because questioning it would require more energy than it is worth. You move toward the next part of the process, cleaning your hands in a way that feels sufficient, not perfect, but acceptable. And as you step back into the open air, you take a slightly deeper breath than before. The difference is immediate, subtle, but noticeable, and you find yourself appreciating it more than expected. You pause for a moment, not long, just enough to reset, and then you continue. Because this, like everything else, is just part of the experience, and you are adapting remarkably well, which, considering the circumstances, is impressive. It's time to step outside. The city greets you immediately. Sound, movement, energy. People pass by, focused, purposeful. The streets are alive, but not orderly. Dust rises with each step, mixing with the scent of animals and daily life. The sun begins to warm the stone beneath your feet, and the air shifts from cool to gently heated. You move carefully, aware of uneven ground and unexpected obstacles. A cart rolls past, pulled steadily, its wheels grinding against stone. Voices overlap, forming a constant background hum. It is not chaotic exactly, but it is never still, and as you take it all in, you realize something simple. This city does not pause. It continues, with or without you. You step forward, joining the flow. There is no clear path, but there is movement. People instinctively adjust, shifting slightly to make space, avoiding collisions without ever stopping. It feels unstructured, and yet it works. You walk over stone that has been shaped by countless footsteps. The surface is uneven, worn smooth in some places, rough in others. You feel it through your feet, adjusting your stride without thinking. The air changes as you move, warmer in the open areas, cooler in the shade of tall buildings, occasionally interrupted by a brief gust of wind that carries with it a mixture of scents, cooking, dust, smoke, life. You pass doorways, open spaces, narrow alleys that seem to lead somewhere, or nowhere at all. Each one holds a different atmosphere, a slightly different version of the same world. You hear a distant conversation, then another, then another. None of them clear enough to follow, but all of them present. It blends into a kind of rhythm, a constant reminder that you are part of something larger. You step aside as a cart approaches, giving it just enough space to pass. The movement is smooth, practiced. No one hesitates. No one overreacts. This is routine. You continue, your pace steady. Not fast, not slow, just moving. And as you do, you begin to notice how natural it feels. Not comfortable, but familiar. Because this is how the city works. Not through order, but through adaptation. And as you move deeper into it, you realize something quietly reassuring. You're keeping up, which in a place like this is more than enough. Now, look up for a moment. The sky stretches wide above the city, clear in places, softened in others by drifting haze. The light is strong, but not harsh, filtered gently through the atmosphere. Smoke rises slowly from distant rooftops, blending into the pale blue above. The air feels warmer now, heavier, carrying the steady presence of the day. There are no forecasts, no sudden alerts, just the sky, vast and consistent, doing exactly what it has always done. You feel the warmth on your skin, steady and unchanging, and for a moment everything feels simple. No decisions, no distractions, just you, standing beneath something that does not change for you, and does not need to. You take a breath, letting your eyes adjust to the brightness. The light here is different. It does not come from controlled sources or carefully designed spaces. It comes from above, uninterrupted, shaping everything it touches. Shadows stretch along the ground, sharp in some places, soft in others. They shift slowly, marking time without announcing it. You notice how the buildings frame the sky. Narrow slices in some areas, wide open views in others, each perspective slightly different, but all connected by the same endless expanse above. You feel the warmth more clearly now, not uncomfortable, just present. It settles on your skin, steady and constant, reminding you that the day is moving forward whether you track it or not. There is no urgency in it, just continuity. You watch as a thin trail of smoke rises and fades, blending into the air so gradually that it almost disappears before you notice. Everything here moves slowly, even the sky. You stand there a moment longer than necessary, because there is nothing demanding your attention. No screen pulling your focus away, just the simple act of looking up. And as you do, something shifts slightly. A quiet sense of perspective. Because this sky has been here long before you, and will remain long after. It does not react. It does not change for you. It simply exists. And for a moment that feels grounding. You lower your gaze slowly, returning to the street, to the movement, to the quiet complexity of life below. But something stays with you, a sense of scale, a reminder that not everything needs to be managed. Some things simply are, and that, in this moment, is enough. Let's talk about where your food actually comes from. It is not packaged, not labelled. It is grown, harvested, carried. The process is slow, physical, and uncertain. Fields stretch beyond the city, worked by hands that rarely rest. The food you eat depends entirely on that effort. There is no backup, no delivery, just the land and what it decides to give. And as you picture it, you begin to understand the distance between your meal and its origin. It is not abstract. It is immediate. Somewhere beyond the city walls, the ground is being turned, not by machines, but by steady, repetitive effort. The soil is dry in places, damp in others, always demanding attention. You can almost feel the texture of it, rough and uneven, shifting under pressure. The air out there is different, less crowded, more open, but still heavy with effort, the scent of earth, of plants, of sun-warmed ground. It is not a quiet place. It is filled with small, constant sounds, movement, work, the rhythm of people doing what must be done. You imagine the slow progression of it all, planting, waiting, watching. There is no guarantee. The weather shifts, the soil responds, or it does not, and everything depends on that response. You begin to realize that food here is not just something you consume. It is something that has already required time, patience, and uncertainty before it ever reaches you, and that changes how you think about it. You take another mental step back. Grain is gathered, carried, ground. The process is long, repetitive, each stage dependent on the one before it. There are no shortcuts, and when it finally arrives in your hands, it is already the result of many unseen efforts. You notice how this awareness settles in, quietly. There is no excess here, no casual waste, because nothing arrives easily enough to be taken for granted. You begin to understand that every bite carries a story, not a dramatic one, just a long, steady chain of small actions, and that chain never really stops, because even as you eat somewhere, the process is beginning again, and slowly you realize something simple. Food here is not just part of life, it is the center of it, which makes your breakfast feel slightly more meaningful and slightly more serious. Now the work begins. It is steady, repetitive, and necessary. Your body adjusts quickly because it must. The tasks are simple, but not easy. You lift, carry, move, repeat. There is rhythm to it, a quiet understanding that this is how life continues. And as the hours pass, you realize there is no real end to the work, just pauses. You start slowly. Not because the work is gentle, but because your body is still learning the pace. Each movement feels deliberate. You lift something, you carry it, you place it down, then you do it again and again. There is no urgency in the sense of panic, but there is consistency, a steady expectation that the work will continue regardless of how you feel about it. You notice how your hands respond first. They adjust to the textures, rough surfaces, firm edges, materials that do not give easily. Your grip strengthens without you thinking about it. Your movements become more efficient, less hesitant, and then your shoulders begin to feel it. Not pain exactly, just a growing awareness, a reminder that effort is happening. The sounds around you blend into the rhythm. Footsteps, movement, the soft scrape of materials shifting, occasional voices, low and brief, never lingering too long. This is not a place for long conversations. This is a place for doing. You begin to find a pattern. Lift, carry, set down, turn, adjust, repeat. It becomes almost hypnotic. Not exciting, not unpleasant, just consistent. Time moves differently here. You're not checking it, not measuring it, just moving through it. The light shifts slightly, the air warms, your body continues, and slowly something changes. The work becomes easier, not because it has become lighter, but because you have adapted to it. Your movements are smoother now, your breathing steadier. You no longer think about each step, you simply follow the rhythm. And there is something oddly calming about that. No decisions, no interruptions, just a clear purpose, repeated until it becomes natural. But here's the thing, it does not stop. There is no final task, no clear moment where everything is finished, just pauses, brief moments where the pace slows before beginning again. You step back for a moment, taking a breath. Not long, just enough, and then you return. Because that is how this works. And surprisingly, you are keeping up. Which in this world is a quiet success. You're not alone in this world. Animals move through the same spaces following their own routines. Some are useful, some are noisy, some are simply present. Their sounds blend into the background, constant and unavoidable. You step around them, sometimes carefully, sometimes quickly, and you learn to accept that this is a shared environment, whether you like it or not. At first, you notice them one at a time, a shape moving just ahead of you, a sound from somewhere behind, a sudden shift in the space that reminds you that you're not the only one navigating it. And then you realize they are everywhere, not overwhelming, just constant. You adjust your path slightly as one crosses in front of you. No hesitation, no surprise, just a small correction that feels natural, as if you have already learned this without realizing it. The sounds become part of the environment. Soft movement, occasional calls, the quiet presence of life continuing alongside yours. You begin to recognize patterns, where they gather, where they move more frequently, which areas feel more active and which remain relatively still. It is not chaotic, it is organized, in its own way. You step carefully, aware of the ground beneath you. It is not always clear, not always predictable, but you learn quickly where to place your feet, how to move without interruption, and slowly you stop noticing them as separate. They become part of the space, like the buildings, the air, the sound of footsteps, just another layer of the environment. You pass by a small group moving together in the distance. Their shapes blend into the scene, indistinct, part of the background rather than the focus. Nothing about it feels unusual, because it isn't. This is how the world functions here. Shared space, shared movement, shared existence. You take a breath, adjusting your pace slightly. and you realize something simple. You're no longer avoiding them. You're moving with them, which, in a place like this, is the only way forward. Now, cooking. Fire, smoke, simple tools. The process is slow, deliberate. The smell fills the air, rich and slightly overwhelming. Food transforms gradually, not instantly. You wait, you watch, you hope it turns out well, and when it does, it feels earned. You approach the space carefully. There is warmth here, immediate, steady, undeniable. The fire glows softly, its light shifting with each small movement. It does not flicker wildly. It breathes. The air is thicker here, carrying the scent of heat, of materials changing, of something becoming something else. You stand nearby watching. There is no rush. Nothing happens instantly. You notice how everything takes time, the way the heat builds slowly, the way the surface of the food changes gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. You lean in slightly, observing, learning through watching rather than instruction. The tools are simple, basic shapes, worn surfaces, materials that have been used again and again. They do not look impressive, but they work, and that is enough. You adjust something slightly, responding to the heat, to the movement of the fire. It is not exact. It is not measured in precise units. It is guided by experience, or in your case, careful observation. The smell deepens, becoming richer, more defined. It fills the space, drifting outward, blending with the rest of the environment. You feel it before you fully understand it. A quiet signal that something is progressing. You wait, because that is part of the process. Waiting without distraction, without checking something else, just being present. And slowly the transformation completes. You step back slightly, taking in the result. It is simple, but it feels finished. You prepare to eat, aware of the effort that went into this moment, not just from you, but from everything that led to it. The fire, the materials, the time. And as you take that first bite, you notice something. It feels different. Not because it is extraordinary, but because you were part of it. And that makes it enough. But here's the thing. Signs of illness are always nearby. They move quietly, appearing without warning. A cough, a moment of fatigue, something small that becomes something larger. There are no quick fixes, just time, rest, and whatever remedies are available. You begin to notice it gradually, not all at once. A subtle change in someone's pace, a quiet pause where there was once steady movement, a shift in energy that is difficult to define but impossible to ignore. It does not announce itself, it simply appears and continues. You observe from a distance, not out of fear but out of awareness. There is a quiet understanding that these things happen, that they are part of the rhythm of life here. You adjust your behavior slightly, nothing dramatic, just small changes. You take a step back. You give space. You pay attention in a way that feels instinctive rather than deliberate. There are no clear solutions, no immediate responses, just time and patience. You notice how others respond calmly, without urgency, without panic. There is a kind of acceptance in the way people move around it, a recognition that not everything can be controlled, that some things simply unfold, and that understanding shapes everything. You take a breath, feeling the air settle around you. It carries the same mixture of scents, the same weight, the same quiet persistence. Nothing has changed, and yet something has. You continue with your day, because that is what happens here. Life does not pause, it adjusts, and you adjust with it, quietly, steadily, and with a growing sense that this is simply part of the world you now inhabit, which, for now, You are handling surprisingly well. Speaking of remedies, medicine is creative. Herbs, mixtures, and theories that sound convincing enough to trust. Some help, some do not. You rely on what is available, because there are no better options, and sometimes that is enough. You enter the space with quiet curiosity. It is not what you expect. There are no bright, sterile surfaces, no organized shelves labeled with clear instructions. Instead, there are small containers, bundles of dried plants, simple tools laid out with practical intent rather than precision. The air smells different here, stronger, a mixture of earthy scents, faint bitterness, something slightly sharp that lingers just long enough to be noticed. It is not unpleasant, but it is unmistakably purposeful. You watch as something is prepared, slowly, carefully. There is no rush, but there is focus. Each movement is deliberate, guided by memory and habit rather than written rules. A leaf is crushed, a liquid is poured. The result is examined, adjusted, accepted. You realize quickly, this is not exact science. This is experience, passed from one person to another, shaped by trial and observation. What works is remembered. What does not is quietly set aside. You sit, waiting. Not because you are certain this will solve anything, but because this is what is available. And here, availability matters more than certainty. You take what is offered. It is not particularly appealing. The taste is unfamiliar, slightly bitter, lingering longer than expected. You swallow anyway. Because that is the process. And as you do, you notice something subtle. There is comfort in the act itself. Not in the result, but in the attempt. The idea that something is being done, that effort is being made, that the situation is not entirely left to chance. You sit for a moment longer, observing, listening. The quiet movements, the soft sounds, the steady rhythm of people doing what they can with what they have. And slowly you understand. Medicine here is not about certainty, it is about possibility. And sometimes that is enough. And slowly you realize, danger is not dramatic here. It is quiet, subtle, always present. A fall, an illness, a mistake. Life is not fragile exactly, but it is not guaranteed either. It does not announce itself. There are no warning signs flashing, no sudden shifts in tone, just a quiet awareness that settles into the background of everything you do. You step carefully, not out of fear, but out of habit. The ground beneath you is uneven. The edges of objects are not softened. The environment does not adjust itself to make things easier. You adjust instead. Every movement becomes slightly more intentional. You lift something with attention. You place it down with care. You navigate spaces with a quiet understanding that small missteps can have larger consequences. Not always, but often enough. You begin to notice how others move. Steady, aware, efficient. There is no hesitation, but there is precision. You follow that example, without thinking too much about it, because thinking too much would slow you down, and slowing down is not always helpful. You take a breath. The air feels the same as before. Nothing has changed, and yet your awareness of it has deepened. You are paying attention now, to surfaces, to movements, to small details that might have gone unnoticed before, and strangely, it feels grounding, because there is clarity in it, a sense that what you do matters, that your actions have direct consequences, that nothing is entirely automatic. You step forward again, more confident now, not because the environment has become safer, but because you have become more aware. And in this world, awareness is its own kind of safety, which, for now, is enough. Now look around more closely. Not everyone lives the same life. Some have more, many have less. The differences are visible, but accepted. This is simply how things are. You begin to notice it in small ways. At first it is subtle, the condition of a doorway, the texture of a garment, the space someone occupies, or does not. And then it becomes clearer. Some spaces are larger, more open, filled with objects that feel less worn, less temporary. The air moves differently there. The light settles more evenly. You do not enter these spaces, but you see them from a distance. Others move differently too, not faster and not slower, just differently. There is a quiet confidence in the way they carry themselves, a sense that the environment responds to them, rather than the other way around. You continue walking, observing without judgment, because there is no immediate reaction to this difference, no visible tension, just a quiet acceptance that this is how things are arranged. You pass through areas where the space feels tighter, more crowded, more lived in. Then through areas where everything feels slightly more ordered. The transition is gradual, but noticeable. You begin to understand that life here is shaped not just by time and effort, but by position. Where you stand, what you have access to, what you do not. And yet, the rhythm of the day continues. Work happens, conversations occur, life moves forward, the structure remains. You take a breath, letting the realization settle without resistance. Because here, questioning it does not change it. It simply exists, and you exist within it, adjusting, observing, continuing, which, in this world, is the expected outcome. Let's talk about belief. It surrounds everything. Rituals, offerings, quiet moments of reflection. You participate because everyone does. It brings structure, and maybe a bit of comfort. You notice it first in passing. A small gesture, a pause, a quiet moment that seems to carry more weight than the rest of the day. Then you see it again, and again. It is everywhere. Not overwhelming, just constant. Small spaces set aside, objects placed with care, movements repeated in the same way day after day. You slow slightly as you approach. There is no pressure, no announcement, just an unspoken understanding that this is something important. You follow the pattern, because it feels natural to do so. You pause, you observe, you participate, carefully, not fully understanding every detail, but recognizing the rhythm of it, the intention behind it, the quiet focus. There is a stillness here that does not exist elsewhere. The sounds of the city soften slightly, the movement slows, the air feels calmer. You take a breath, and for a moment everything feels more contained, more structured, more certain. You do not stay long, no one does. But the effect lingers, a subtle shift in your awareness, a sense that there is something beyond the immediate tasks, the daily repetition, the constant motion, something that provides meaning, or at least the feeling of it. And as you step away, returning to the flow of the day, you carry that with you, not as a clear understanding, but as a quiet presence, which here seems to be enough. Now, entertainment. Simple but effective. Stories, gatherings, moments of distraction. Nothing excessive, just enough to break the routine. You find yourself drawn to it almost without realizing. A small group gathered, a space that feels slightly more open, slightly more relaxed. The energy's different here. Lighter, not loud, just softer. You pause at the edge, observing. Someone is speaking, not formally, not loudly, just telling something that others are listening to with quiet attention. The words flow steadily, creating a rhythm that feels separate from the rest of the day. You listen, not fully focused, but enough to follow the movement of it. There are small reactions, a shift in posture, a faint change in expression. Nothing dramatic, just subtle signs that the moment is being shared. You step closer, carefully, joining without interrupting. And as you do, you notice something. Time feels different here. Slower, less structured. There is no task to complete, no goal to reach, just the experience itself. You allow yourself to settle into it. For a moment, the sounds around you soften. The movement of the city continues, but it feels slightly more distant. You're still part of it, but also slightly apart from it. And that space, that small separation feels important, because it gives you something you've not had all day. A pause, not for rest, but for something else, something lighter. You remain there for a little while longer, then slowly you step away, returning to the rhythm of the day, but carrying that small moment with you. A reminder that even here, there is space for something more than just survival, which, in this world, feels surprisingly valuable. Hey, you made it. The day has slowly come to an end. The light has softened, the sounds of the city have shifted, and everything feels just a little quieter now. Not silent, never silent, but quieter in a way that feels earned. You return to your space, stepping carefully over the same worn ground, moving through the same dim light that greeted you this morning. The air is warmer now, holding on to the memory of the day. Smoke lingers faintly. The walls feel closer, familiar, and slowly you settle. You sit down first, letting your body rest before you even realize how tired you are. Not exhausted in a dramatic way, just used. Like every small movement has added up over time. Your shoulders drop slightly, your breathing slows, and for the first time today, there is nothing expected of you. No task waiting, no place you need to be. Just this moment, you adjust your position, lying back onto your simple bed. The surface feels the same as before, rough, firm, unapologetically basic, and yet it feels different now, because you've earned it. The sounds of the city continue around you. Soft footsteps, distant voices, the occasional movement that reminds you that life does not stop, even when you do. But they feel further away now, less demanding, almost comforting, like a steady rhythm you no longer need to follow. You close your eyes for a moment, not fully asleep, just resting in that space between awareness and drifting, and as you do, your mind begins to wander. Back through the day, the weight of the water in your hands, the texture of the stone beneath your feet, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the quiet rhythm of work, repeating, steady, endless. It was not easy, it was not comfortable, and yet you managed, you adapted. You moved through a world without modern comforts, without convenience, without certainty, and you found your place in it, even if only for a day, and slowly you realize something gentle. Life here is not about ease, it is about continuation, about small efforts repeated over time, about finding rhythm in routine, about accepting what is and moving forward anyway. You take another slow breath. The air feels heavier now, but softer somehow. Your body relaxes into the surface beneath you. Your thoughts begin to drift further apart, and that quiet question returns. Could you do it again? Another day without comfort? Another morning like this one? Another slow, steady cycle of effort and rest? Maybe, or maybe, just once was enough. Either way, you were here, you lived it, you made it through, and now you can rest. So let your breathing slow. Let the sounds fade into the background. Let the day slip gently away. And when you're ready, you can leave Rome behind or stay just a little longer. Either way, sleep well